Well, we are in the midst of the high holidays. Actually, we're just coming to the end of it. Sukkot is just around the corner. And as a result, Ruth has been rather busy in Israel. So it's me again for the Christian Friends of EMUNAH Israel webinar. And because it's not live, we are doing a pre-interview with a dear friend of mine from Canada. And as always, we're looking at how we can explore meaningful ways that Christians can support Israel because of the dates of Sukkot and Simchat Torah. We're recording this interview early. It's an important one and you don't want to miss it. Today, I'm joined by Chris Atkins. We need a drum roll there. He's a Canadian filmmaker with over 30 years of experience. He actually was one who seconded me for my first and only acting career moment. I determined pretty quickly that I wasn't an actor, but I did pull off a pretty good Roman soldier back in the day. And maybe that was because of the rugby days and playing in the second row, but that's another story for another day. So he's been involved in making films and programs, documentaries that span a wide and diverse range of subjects and locations. He's been to the Siberian tundra in Russia, where he documented remote indigenous reindeer herders, and to conflict zones in Iraq, Afghanistan, and Pakistan. He is one that doesn't shy away from danger when it means capturing a shot that needs to be told, and he has been shedding light on the persecution of religious minorities through those films. He's also produced films in Israel and delved into religious, historical, and archaeological narratives. Among those works are Hijacking the Holy Land, which looks at the Israel-Palestine conflict, Israel, A Journey Through Time, which I highly recommend, a 6-part documentary, and Unearth, which examines biblical archaeology. One other thing of note is that he directed Freedom Fighter, which is a compelling story about Egyptian activist Majed al-Shafi and his missions to assist persecuted people around the world. And his most recent project, which is what we're going to talk about today, Dying to Live, which investigates the tragic events of the October 7th massacre that took place a little over 2 years ago. He is in the Bahamas, and I'm a little bit jealous. He's actually a passionate diver and ocean explorer as well, and captures that on film, looking for shipwrecks and ocean mysteries. And you need to keep a close tab on his YouTube channel, Wreck Watch, where he may just release some new pirate secrets down the road and uncover stories hidden beneath the waves. But Chris, sorry for the long bio, but you deserve it. You hear that you spent many years traveling to and back and forth to Israel. Why Israel, and how did you first end up there, and why do you keep going back?
Well, thank you so much for having me on in that long intro. I'm thinking, wow, I want to see this guy. Who is this guy? He sounds pretty cool. I can't believe that you're talking about me. Well, thank you for that. Well, Israel, man, Israel has become so important to me personally. It's a place that now, for the last 20 years, I've spent more time there than almost anywhere else. I know Jerusalem better than I know Toronto. It's just, it's become a second home to me. But way back 20 years ago, before it all began, I could not point to Israel on a map. I didn't really know anything about it other than that there was dust, there were camels, and there was war, and that, yeah, there were some Jewish people there, and that Jesus seemed to come from there or something like that. And I really had no interest. And it all started with a good friend of mine named Joe Amaral, who had written a book called First Century Foundations, and he started looking at the Hebraic roots of Christianity. And someone had passed my name along to him because he was thinking of doing a weekly half-hour TV program for Christian television in Canada about that, which means he would be going to Israel and he'd be exploring archaeology and talking with rabbis and pastors and archaeologists and all that kind of stuff. And he needed somebody who could travel, who could film that. And of course, being Christian television, low budget, he needed one person that could wear all the hats of a TV crew. And so he got in touch with me and we discussed the idea of going and what that would mean. And so I reluctantly took my first trip when he said, "Do you want to come with me?" And I was like, "Oh, do I want to go to Israel?" Like, I hadn't, other than going to Russia, I hadn't really been to any other places that had any kind of danger, that that other side of the world, truly different culture thing, something different than America or Europe. But I thought, you know what, I do love history, and it would be interesting. And so I thought, I'll go this once. I'll go this once, help them out, see what it's like, and then I can say I've been to Israel. And we
And
went. Yeah,
I was just
yes,
that opened the door to, of course, Afghanistan, Pakistan, and all of these other places that are now, might say, the heartbeat of danger in one sense. And you are,
exactly. Yeah, exactly. And I haven't been able to get away from those places. So it's just yeah, it really changed. It changed my life really because I went over there and I know a lot of people, they say, "Oh, when you went to Israel, did it feel like home?" No, it felt like a foreign country. Did it feel like, you were in the Holy Land? No, actually, it felt like a difficult place, but at the same time a fascinating place. And meeting, I mean, I've met Jewish people before. I don't know if I'd ever met an Israeli before, but you kind of go in with these, there's some biases, there's some preconceived notions of what a Jewish person is, what an Israeli is, what an Arab is. And being in Israel for a couple of weeks that very first time and actually, engaging with the real people and seeing them, as other humans and sitting down and having dinner with them and going out and exploring the past and history with them. It opened my eyes up, opened up my mind and my heart. And not only was the Bible coming to life for me, but really the world in the Middle East was coming alive to me, and the Hebraic roots of Christianity. I suddenly, even though I knew Jesus is Jewish, even though I knew that, he didn't celebrate Christmas, suddenly all of these things just started making sense, and it created a hunger in me to learn more. And so I started both doing some of my own research and exploring this stuff and reading the Bible differently. And then when Joe asked me to go back and film more TV shows, I jumped at that because I thought this is cool, this is fascinating. And so since then, it has changed my life and has taken me on many paths, not just in Israel but around the world.
and yeah, and of course we had the privilege of meeting in Yad HaShmonah and doing some filming there way back when. I think it must have been 2007 or 2008 that we shot a hastily made documentary. I think is the best way of putting it. But let's move forward to kind of the more recent time. And I have a question for you. Where were you on October the 7th in 2023?
Well, I don't know whether to say fortunately or unfortunately, but I was actually in Israel on October 7th. We had just wrapped in Israel filming a series which I was producing at the time called The Prophetic Connection, and we had just finished. In fact, we were down not too far from the Gaza Strip, 12 hours earlier, and we had wrapped filming that season. Went to Mevaseret Zion to have Shabbat dinner with some good friends of ours. And then the next morning, getting up at 6 a.m. to get ready to go to the airport and take the Air Canada flight back to Toronto. And yeah, that was just shocking. I remember getting out of the shower and seeing my phone, the red alert app, showing you rockets was going crazy. But to be honest with you, I wasn't too concerned because this happens frequently. And I looked and like, okay, it's in Sderot, it's in the south. Everybody knows what they're doing. Everybody's in their bomb shelters. Hamas is just being a jerk again. And went down, had breakfast, but the alarms kept coming. Then we started to notice that people around the hotel were kind of, you know, something was going on. Then we take our car, we're driving from Jerusalem to Tel Aviv, and starting to hear sirens and starting to see stuff happening. And we get to the airport, and normally you drop your rental car off and they say, well, they've got to walk around it, they got to check it, you got to sign a form. But no, they just started telling us, run, get to the airport, get to the airport, get inside, get inside. And we get inside, and then they start telling us, leave your luggage where it is, get to the shelters. And that was when it's like, wow, okay, this is not normal. But we still did not know or understand truly what was happening. It wasn't until we were on the plane flying back to Toronto when I was able to connect to the plane's Wi-Fi, and people were messaging me, "Are you okay? Are you safe?" I'm like, "What's going on?" And then we saw the news, and I just remember that sickening, sickening feeling, and looking around the plane, and seeing everyone's faces as everybody on our flight was just getting that information of just how bad it was. Yeah, it was just devastating.
And in the immediate aftermath, because of course you have traveled there extensively, and the weeks following, there, of course, was mixed messages that were coming out from all over and various different channels, and I was trying to keep my head on top of it, especially in the immediacy of it. And you
Hmm.
sitting on a plane and thinking, "Wow, I was there just yesterday." What were the Do you think that having been there, that there were messages, narratives, perspectives that were missing or distorted in the international, or especially the Canadian media coverage, because that's of course where you're from, because it was a global life changing event, wasn't it?
It truly was. And I have to say, within the first 24 hours, I think most media was reporting, with the limited information that they had, but reporting that it was a massacre and that it was Hamas, that was performing it, and that innocent Israelis were dying. But 24 hours after that, you start to see the narrative shift. And suddenly these same broadcasters and news agencies that were like, as shocked as anybody and saying Hamas is attacking and innocent civilians are being kidnapped and killed. And suddenly they started making excuses. Suddenly they're starting to change the narrative. And suddenly you start seeing these protests that are happening in cities like Toronto and New York and London, and it was shocking to see how quickly the tide was turning and how people's opinions were turning, and starting to see people that I know on my social media that are posting some crazy insane things like that it didn't really happen, that this is all being made up by Israel, or that it is happening but Netanyahu is the one that orchestrated it, and all these different conspiracy theories. I'd say within 36 hours, these things were prevailing and actually taking over the narrative of the massacre itself.
And so, what was your response in light of that? Because there is something that you are adept to, and that's carrying a camera around, be it above water or below it. What was your response, having kind of been there, obviously just missing, and literally 24 hours prior, you were right near that location, and what did you do? What was your heart cry, if you like?
Well, I remember being on the plane and looking at that and feeling helpless and feeling like I needed to do something, and felt like I need to do a film about this. I need to use what God has given me and do something. But I didn't know how I was going to be able to do that. Um, you know, I was getting back, and I had a bunch of other commitments and trying to figure out like, oh, what do I do? What should I do? What should be done? And that was when, not long after I'm thinking this, while I was still on the plane heading back to Toronto, I got a text message from my good friend Majid Al Shafai, who you had mentioned. We did his film Freedom Fighter back in, I think, 2011. And his story, he is an Egyptian Arab who had converted from Islam to Christianity and was actually tortured and given a death sentence. And Israel is who saved his life. Or as he would put it, Israel is who God used to save his life. And Majid texted me, first of all, to see if I was in Israel and if I was all right. So I told him I'm on the plane. And then he wrote back, he said, "We need to do a film." And I was like, yes, okay, how do we get started? I was just landing. While I was on my way back home, he was scrambling to try and find a way to get to Israel. So he didn't really know what he could do, but he felt like he had to be here. And he managed to hire a local camera guy. Within a week of October 7th happening, he was on the ground, had a local camera guy, and had started touring Raim and started touring some of the that kibbutzim that were attacked, and gathering some stories and making some connections. And it would be about 6 months later when we were able to go over together and start collecting these stories and spending time with, the brother of Eviatar David and the sister of Romy Gonen and some of the survivors, and a very special, heartbreaking story. We met with the family and spent a lot of time with the family of Teferet Lapidot, who she was tragically killed at the music festival. And yeah, it was important for us to tell something. I think I think one of the reasons that we did it, because you see now there's a lot of films coming out. There's already been a lot of films that have come out, some very very good important ones. But why does it matter? Why did we feel that we needed to do one? And we felt that being non-Jews, with Majid being an Egyptian Arab, and with me being a Christian Canadian, we wanted to lend our voices to it. And we were hoping that by putting our voices into the mix, that it wouldn't be as easily dismissed. Because some of the films that have come out, which have been very powerful, important films, people dismiss them like, well, they're Jewish, so of course they're going to take that side. Oh, well, they're Israeli, of course they're going to take that side. So for us to put our voices into the mix, we wanted to help say, you know what, it's not just an Israeli issue, it's not just a Jewish issue, and it's not only Jews and Israelis that care. We, being non-Jews, we care as well, and we want to show our support.
Absolutely. It's amazing how many comments I get on our YouTube channel on Israel Matters that are like, he must be being paid by the Mossad or whatever. It's
Mhm.
just it's absurd that they think that it is only Jews that have a heart cry that
Mhm.
lines up with what the scriptures say, and it's simply not the case. So thank you for doing what you did. Now, it's got a little bit of a unusual title that I want you to kind of expound upon because I think that the obviously we've seen a number of the films just simply saying October 7th or bearing witness, but why did you choose the title you chose and what are you hoping to convey through it?
Yeah, Majid is the one that chose the title. I think initially we were talking about it, and we're even considering titles like, you know, Black Sabbath, or something like that, which I think Steven Spielberg actually ended up using that title for the project he was doing. But Majid came up with the title, and when I asked him about it, because I was at first kind of confused by it, but he's like, Chris, look, the Israelis, they want peace. They are constantly trying to do whatever they can for peace, and they are dying. They're dying for peace. Even just going to a music festival, not expecting this, they are dying to live. And I was like, okay, well, actually, you know what? That there's something that makes sense there, and depending on how you want to look at it. You have Israelis, of course, in the IDF who are going in and doing the ultimate sacrifice for their country, like every other, defense force or military. These people sacrifice their lives for whatever their country's goals are. I mean, uh, so they are putting their lives on the line, and they are dying for you know whatever the agenda is. I mean, if you look at the Russian soldiers, what are they dying for? I don't really know, and I feel very sorry for them. But you have these soldiers who are dying for Putin's agenda. But if you look at the IDF, and if you look at the people of Israel who are putting their lives on the line to protect their homeland and to protect their people, they are dying to live. They just want to live. They would love to live in peace, but if they can't live in peace, they will live in whatever situation they're in. They just want to live. And so that made a lot of sense to me.
So what was the hardest parts about making this film? Obviously you had to see some horrendous footage which has been shown all over the world, but it was other than the footage and the graphic nature of what they took delight in filming, what were the hardest parts about making Dying to Live?
Oh man, there's so many. It was one of the most difficult projects I have ever done. It was the most difficult project, and it was difficult on many levels. The footage, having to go through that footage, I really didn't want to. And that was difficult, is choosing what to use and what not to use. And then, we had the decision, the pieces that we chose to use, do we blur them or do we not blur them? And we've heard mixed reactions, right? We've had some Israelis say thank you, and some Israelis say you shouldn't have used any at all, and some Israelis have said you should have shown more and you should have shown the worst stuff. So trying to make that decision, knowing that, while we're making this film for Israel, we know it's not really meant to be viewed by Israelis who've gone through this. We wanted to make a film that is going to go to those people who say this didn't happen. That was the other difficult part, is sitting with these families as they're bearing their souls and they're talking about their loved ones being kidnapped or killed, or the different situations that they went through. Michal Ohana, who survived the attack, and hearing her account of what she went through, being with them and then asking them to open up these wounds. That was difficult. Then being in the edit suite and trying to figure out which pieces to use and which not to use. And, unfortunately, there were some edits, there were some interviews that I just couldn't fit in. I felt like I kept saying to my wife, I don't want to make a film where at the end people just want to kill themselves because it's so depressing and so horrible, right? Like I needed to find the hope, and that was difficult. Where is the hope in all of this? It's just it's brutal. I would sit at my computer and I would just break down going through these interviews, seeing the raw emotion. And the other part that was difficult was as I'm going through this, trying to explain to family members and clients and friends what I'm doing and why I'm doing it, and having some outright challenge me. And I even had someone tell me I'm on the wrong side of history, and it's affected my business, it's affected my family, it's affected my relationships. So on all accounts, it has been very difficult and the most difficult project I've ever done.
And so, what has the feedback been? You've completed the film. What has the feedback been about the film so far? And you've already mentioned some negative reactions with regard to close colleagues and things. But in the wider general public, what have the reactions been of those that have watched it?
Well, for those who have been willing to watch it, which has not been that many, people that actually sit down and watch it, it's been very positive. Even people that are not pro-Israel. Actually, a former high school teacher of mine came to our screening in Toronto, and I would not say he's pro-Israel. I wouldn't say he's pro-Palestine, but he's certainly is very critical of Israel. And, Israel is still a country that can be criticized and at times should be criticized. But he watched the film with an open mind, and it moved him. It was very positive, and he saw what Israel went through and felt it, and had a different appreciation for it. I had an Iranian man reach out to me who had watched our film. I had worked with him on another filming project, and he watched the film, and he wrote to me a beautiful email saying, "Thank you for making this." As an Iranian and as a Muslim, he had never considered Israelis humans before. And so for him to see our film and suddenly realize the pain that was caused, and seeing them as humans having, real feelings, and the casualties, the loss, the pain, the suffering that they've gone through, it changed his perspective on Israel. So for the people who've been willing to watch it, it's been positive. We did have a screening. We were selected by the Beverly Hills Film Festival, and we actually got to play our film at the Chinese Theater in Hollywood, right across the street from where Jimmy Kimmel is filmed. And I remember at the end of the film, I looked over and there was this older gentleman, and he was just weeping. And I walked up to him to thank him for coming out to see the film, and he just held me. And it's interesting because people just assume that I'm Jewish, and because I did the film and I go to Israel, and he hugged me and was holding me so tight, and he said, "I'm a Catholic." He goes, "But I care. This matters. Thank you for making it." And then on our way out of the film, my wife and I are walking out, and these two young American Jewish brothers, they were waiting for us, and they hugged us and they said, "Thank you for making this." This, they actually had just seen the poster in the lobby of the theater, and they wondered what it was, and they didn't know if it really was going to be, you know, pro or against. And they watched it and said it was the best one that they had seen, and they were so thankful that we had made it, and talked to us for hours. So yeah, for those willing to watch it, I think it's been across the board positive. But getting people to watch it, even some family members that disagree with Israel, they won't even give it a shot. They'll listen to other people's podcasts, they'll read articles, and I'm like, I'm your family. I've been going there for 20 years. I was there on the day. Do you think it's not worth hearing my perspective and what I witnessed personally? And so it is interesting that a lot of people just absolutely refuse to even see it.
That must be really tough in family situations where people are not willing to entertain or give real engagement with what you're producing and the quality of the stuff that you do produce. And just as we kind of wrap our time up together, and you're Canadian. I haven't engaged directly with a Canadian to ask this question, but how has Canada responded to October 7th on a national scale?
Overall, I'm very disappointed in my country. We have not reacted positively or appropriately, with our current prime minister declaring his support for recognizing the state of Palestine, for their open, sometimes ridiculous criticism of Jewish people and of Israelis. Not to say that Israel has done everything correctly. They are humans and make mistakes like every other nation. But yeah, our country has not been supportive. In fact, it feels almost like to have a position like what I have and to make a film like what I have is dangerous almost. It threatens it could potentially threaten my future, my work, my career, my home, my family. Just being, a Canadian who has supported Israel with a film. So yeah, and you see there's a lot of anti-Semitism rising, what's happening in Toronto and Montreal and places like that. There's been some horrible things that have happened to our Jewish citizens. So yeah, no, Canada has not been responding well.
Thanks, Chris, for sharing your heart and your perspective on what and where Canada is at with regard to October 7th and what's been going on in Montreal and Toronto and elsewhere across Canada. Where can people find you online, and where can they watch Dying to Live?
Well, we would love for people to go to dyingtolivefilm.com. You can rent it or buy it through that website. It is also on Rumble, and it is on the Israeli streaming app Izzy and Salem Now. But of course, if you can go to dyingtolivefilm.com, that is our preferred place for you to watch it. We are also still hoping to have screenings across the U.S. and Canada over this next year. And so if you are watching and you'd like to have us in and you'd like to screen our film, please reach out. You can go to dyingtolivefilm.com, and I believe there's a contact there, or you can send me a message. My email is chris@onemedia.ca. That's ONEMEDIA.ca. And if you want to find me, you can find me on Facebook, Chris Atkins Photography. You can find me on Instagram at Chris Atkins Photography. I have my own YouTube channel, which is I think if you search Chris Atkins Canada, where I do a little bit of behind the scenes and some gear reviews, if you like that kind of stuff. And what I'm filming down here in the Bahamas is for my Wreck Watch TV. If you like shipwrecks and undersea exploration and stories and history, that is the place to be. So yeah, also onemedia.ca or chrisatkins.ca. All of those links, you can find me somehow.
Thank you, Chris, for your time. And he has given us permission to see an 11-minute excerpt of Dying to Live. So don't go anywhere. This is Dying to Live.
The first thing I realized just immediately was, that's it. She's dead.
I prayed to God and I said, please God, I don't want to die. Not like this.
My assumption is that she knew that she's in a horrific situation, but she didn't want to make her mother worry so much.
She told my mom that we were ambushed, the driver is dead, and I was shot on my arm, and if no one will come to rescue me, I'll die.
I was feeling like I'm wishing for my beautiful daughter. I was praying for her to die.
And at the last 10 minutes of the conversation, it's only the terrorist speaking. And just like that, Romy was vanished, like disappeared from Earth.
It's a shock. It's like somebody stole from you your heart. Great shock.
My name is Reverend Majid Shafii. I'm the founder and president of One Free World International. I'm not an Israeli, I'm not a Jewish, I'm not a Palestinian, and I'm not a Muslim. I am a human being. I am Egyptian background, and I'm standing here in front of you with the massacre of October 7, the worst thing that happened to Israel and to the Jewish community since the Holocaust, have to be addressed. As an Egyptian, we are the traditional enemy of Israel. From the time of the pharaohs, all the way to Yom Kippur War. I stand in front of you as a defender of Israel. My questions will be tough, will be touching on some of the memories, so I really apologize in advance. Tell me what's happened October 7, 2023.
My brother went with 4 of his friends to the Nova Festival. He went there, again, to celebrate, to dance, to have fun, to celebrate brotherhood and peace, and meet people from all over the world.
2 of my friends, they called me and they said, oh my God, you're in Israel. We make a party, a big party. It's the Nova Festival. You need to come. And I said, okay, it's a good idea. We arrived to the party on 1 p.m. And until 6:30 in the morning, it was the best festival I was. We go to dance.
For me, October 7th started like a regular day. It was 6:30 in the morning, and we woke up by the alarms.
We woke up at 6:30 a.m. and there was sirens. So in Israel, we know that we have to run to the bomb shelter.
Like almost everyone in Israel, we woke up on October 7th to sirens.
And we went back to sleep because a missile attack is not enough a reason to stay awake.
6:30 in the morning, they start with the rockets.
מה זה לצאת לשם? מה קרה?
אין פה מרחב מוגן, יאללה, לצאת.
מה זה אין מרחב מוגן? יואו, אבל אנחנו לא רוצים למות עכשיו. למה דווקא עכשיו?
They stopped the music and they said everybody needs to go out from this area. People start running and hearing a shotgun.
Everyone started checking in to make sure people were okay. And initially, everyone said, we're good, we're in our bomb shelters.
And when we woke up, we started getting messages and videos.
My mom immediately texted my brother to see if he's okay because we knew that he is in a dangerous zone.
But very quickly, that changed. And I mean, within a half an hour to, we have a red alert on the kibbutz.
I started seeing the videos that people sent me, and I saw one of them was of a Jeep getting in with terrorists on it.
He texted, there's been shooting on us, the party is over, we're running to the vehicle.
And the next messages were that they heard Hamas in their homes They heard their belongings being overturned and broken, and they could hear gunfire.
For me, seeing this, the first thing I thought was, this must be fake. No way that this is real. They're just, messing with us.
They start to shot all over the car, and we start to running back to the Nova. In this time, I don't understand what happened, but I saw the terrorists, and everybody scream, and everybody in panic and stress. And sorry.
They could hear Arabic, they could hear Allah Akbar, and they began hearing their neighbors being killed.
And my mom continued asking, are you okay, what's going on? And by 7:43 a.m., the connection lost. We felt helpless, completely. We didn't know what to do.
حماس وهم كانوا بيرتكبوا اكتوبر 7 كانوا بيصوروا، كانوا بيعملوا حتى في الاعلام العسكري بتاعهم لايف ستريم اللي هو يعني في الانترنت بيذيعوها علنا
100%.
هل لو انت يعني في ناس النهارده يقول لك اكتوبر 7 ما صار، حتى يعني هذا ما صار، هذا كله بس بروباغندا اسرائيليه. هل انت مقتنع ان اكتوبر 7 حصل ولا ما حصل؟
اكيد حصل، على شفنا بالتلفزيون، اكيد ما حصل. اكيد حصل.
We know that Hamas, they came equipped with all those GoPro cameras and filmed in real time in their cameras and in their smartphones and broadcasted all the atrocities that they were doing in real time. So this was probably the most recorded war crime in history of humanity.
I went down on October 9th and delivered 500 bags of food in Sderot. There were still bodies out, there was burning vehicles. You could see the destruction. It looked like an apocalyptic film.
2 weeks ago, IDF unit called me and they said, we are inviting you to come and watch the raw images video, 47-minute video. I went, I saw the video. Every single terrorist of Hamas, when he was doing massacre, they would never use the word of free Palestine. They never slogan, never chanted free Palestine. They never say the word of free Al-Aqsa. No. They even never say from river to the sea, Palestine will be free. Not. The only word I experienced from their mouth, every single activist of Hamas, where they were murdering the children, they were shooting the bullets into the private parts of the females, or they were raping, the only one word coming out of their mouth, which was Allahu Akbar.
الله أكبر والعزة للإسلام والمسلمين تمكنوا من رقاب المجاهدين والمقاتلين. طاهر يا حاج.
الله أكبر الله أكبر. هاي جثث الكلاب، هيهم هاي جثث الكلاب. الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر.
October 7th took place. When you received this news, how was your feeling as a mother, as a Muslim, and as a woman, and as a human rights activist?
October 7th revolutionized the way I think. I knew that there was evil, but October 7th just showed the world, and me especially, as a grandmother, as a mother, as a woman, as a Muslim, as an activist, as a human being, everything that could ever be wrong.
I didn't think it could happen.
It was beyond any imagination of, we've seen what the enemy has done to Israel, can do, has tried to do. This was far beyond, it was pure evil. I can only listen to parts of it at a time. I have to kind of shut down, and I have a huge amount of empathy for everyone involved, and the ones who don't know if their families are alive, their kids are alive, or you know, their family members are alive.
What's your message to every Israeli father lost his son, his daughter, his brother in the massacre of October 7th?
There is no pain greater, and there is nothing that I or anybody else can do about that pain. Nothing, nothing. I would give everything I have, will ever have ever had, to ease that pain for them or for me. But don't give in to hatred. In the memory of your child, don't give in to hatred. Defeat the ideology, but not the people. Kill the ideology that killed your child, but don't kill the people.
To the Hamas leadership, I want to say thank you. Thank you for uniting the Jewish people. Thank you for activating them. If there is one thing that you didn't learn yet, that when the Jewish community get attacked, they get activated. From the time of pharaohs all the way to the Nazis. There is one thing that the world tried to do over and over again, is to destroy them, break them, but somehow they always rise again because they knew that God is with them. If there is one thing I'd like to tell Hamas, thank you for proving to us that after every night there is new morning carrying new day, after every storm there is sunshine, and after every persecution there is victory. Thank you for proving to us you can kill the dreamers, but no one can kill the dream.
Have a blessed week, and we'll see you on the next Friends of EMUNAH webinar.